Blackmoor Foundations. This right here is the key that took gaming from this chainmail. This is 3rd edition. I think it was 1st edition. When was this published? Let's take a look here. 1979, 3rd edition. Come on, baby. Oh, 1975? I don't know. I get confused by all these dates, and I'm not the only one. How do we get from that to this? Men and Magic. OD&D. How did we get to an actual role-playing game with people running around and, individuals running around dungeons and getting up to all sorts of hijinks, fighting whatever the heck that thing is? Well, we did it through this little campaign called Blackmoor. It was the first fantasy campaign. And there was a little intermediate step called the Bronstein. And that's what this book is all about. And I think it's important to read this because there are a lot of people trying to rewrite the history of role-playing games. And they don't like the fact that a couple of old white guys, I think David Arneson was like in his young 20s. Anyway, brilliant man. Just completely changed the face of the hobby. And this is a great book that talks about it. I see all my little notes here. It's kind of dog-eared. I want to highlight a couple of things for you because I think this is an important conversation. I think this is an important part of that conversation. And I think talking about the history of the game and how we evolved from miniature war games to these A, B, C narrative games where you're just guessing what the DM wants is a key component to understanding how the hobby developed in some awkward directions. And if we rewind a little bit and take off in a new direction, then maybe we can have the kind of games. I mean, the 70s were a heady time. The whole hobby was brand new. They were experimenting with all kinds of new ideas. Doesn't that sound like fun? Or do you just want to play the same edition, slightly tweaked, but with new art? And that's it. You see how I check myself? I'm trying to mellow out here a little bit in my youngish old age. All right, so a couple of things I really wanted to highlight and show you here. Arneson's Blackmoor was planned as a campaign that fell under the greater umbrella of the Castle and Crusade Society, an organization for medieval wargaming. All right, so Blackmoor started off life as a miniature wargame thing. Now, this society was a way for clubs to compete with and against each other. They would set up these big nations. Gygax came up with a concept called the Great Nation, or the Great Kingdom. And the Blackmoors were, see, there's the Great Kingdom, and the Blackmoors were way up in the north in this dank, swampy area. This is where it gets interesting. Look at this. The military campaigns had local game clubs conducting activities within their chosen map area. Conflicts occurred between different wargame clubs, such as cross-border raids. The Twin Cities guys got together, put together an alliance, and they went over and beat up on the Lake Geneva guys. I mean, not like they jumped in their car and were like, doing the whole, not Guys in Dallas, West Side Story thing. No. They said, hey, they picked up the phone and they said, hey, Gary, we're sending 2 barons with a total of 150 knights and 30 militia pikemen, and they're going to beat up on one of your outlying farms. What do you got for defense? Can you run that game? This is the great part. In some cases, one group would have another group have their own players act as proxies. You guys run the game. Let us know how it turns out. Well, we've done a little bit of that here on the channel, where we ran a military campaign, kind of a black powder campaign set in Tennessee, and I didn't run any of the battles. I just told the viewers, hey, here's who's fighting, here's the terrain, here's the order of battle for the one side, for Knoxville. Here's the order of battle for the other guys. Go to town. Let me know how it turns out. These guys were doing that. And I really wanted to highlight how generous that is. Can you imagine if you were in a D&D campaign and you couldn't make it for the session and you told one of the other players, just run my character for me? Better yet, imagine if your whole table got into a fix and you asked one of the other tables at a convention, hey, can you guys run this fight and let us know how it turns out? Can you imagine having that much faith in your fellow man? It was a different time, man. It was a time we need to return to. That kind of generous spirit is amazing. Kudos to the old guys. In 1972, the Blackmoor bunch were moved to another area of Blackmoor in the south, once again transforming the domains that lay between Blackmoor and the Great Kingdom. All right, so they didn't let canon influenced them, or well, I guess we can't run this campaign because there's not enough space. They just went, right. One of the things I think is great is this kind of reminds me of the 3 ages of Middle Earth. Yeah, you know what? They just made the oceans a whole lot wider. Yeah, we just sank Beleriand. Yeah, we just sank Atlantis. I can't remember what the Middle Earth Atlantis is, but you know what I'm talking about. Oh, Numenor. We just sank Numenor. It was kind of in the way. All right, back to the game. With this new iteration, everyone built castles and ruled over a small domain with an army. Instead of exploring dungeons, the players needed to clear their territories of all the monsters that lived in the wilderness and establish safe areas for agriculture. Oh, that sounds like the kind of like late stage version of AD&D. You got to clear your 30-mile hex. What if we just started there? That could be fun, right? Well, but what if I don't? What if I want to betray my next door neighbor because I want to take his castle for my own? Oh, we can do some PvP. It's just like playing Risk. It's a lot of fun. You don't have as much invested. What else did I tag here? I just thought that was really interesting. Arneson's sense of humor can be seen here with a dating on the notice. This is notice number 3, by the way. This is from Corner of the Tabletop. And here we go. On Saturday, May 22nd, 1071, a Braunstein-type game set in the Middle Ages will be held at Dave Arneson's home after the Napoleonic campaign meeting is completed. All those attending the Napoleonic meeting are invited to stay for this game. On May 22nd, 1071. Oh, wait a minute. And here, Griffith Morgan, the author of this fine book, says, early Blackmoor dates run parallel to real dating, which can be seen in David McGarry's dating for his own adventures, which occur in the 1070s as well. Oh, interesting. So they use the real-world calendar, I wonder what that can mean. I mean, you all know. I'm not going to beat it up. Oh, sorry. This is what I wanted to show you. Now, this particular map comes to us. This is the Fletcher rendering of Blackmoor Town. Ken Fletcher map based on Arneson's design. This is from 1983. This comes from the Ken Fletcher. I guess it was in his attic for a long time. But I wanted to show, so this is a very nice redrawing. And this was done because Dave Arneson was setting up his own company to sell a Blackmoor supplement. So he hired Svensson to draw some much nicer. And I think it's important, this graveyard. Here is the Church of the Facts of Life. Okay, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the Church of the Facts of Life. I think that's hysterical. But this is the part I wanted to key in on here. Look at this. We got the Baron's Tower. This is Svensson's freehold. One of the players was a guy named Svensson, and he had his own little barony. Oh, he was running a faction. Isn't that interesting? I think that's interesting. The Loch Gloomin report. These are battle reports relating to the outpost of Loch Gloomin. You'll notice Greg Svensson's character is reported as having died. As the story goes, Greg could not take part in the game session, so the other players used his character as cannon fodder and got him killed. When Greg found out, Dave was forced to bring Svenny back from the dead, since Greg felt he had been unfairly used in the battle. Oh, wait a minute. So we just retconned something that was really cheap? They were retconning things as early as the 1970s. I don't know. I think that's important. I don't really have any analysis, but that's one of the things to be aware of. When you have somebody pilot your character, there's ways to retcon it. It's not the end of the world. Arneson is describing a fateful night. With Barker, this is Phil Barker, who apparently was a professor of Dave Arneson's, and that's probably how Phil got the idea for Tecumseh. Well, I mean, not specifically Tecumseh, but I think, am I dead naming Phil? That's M.A.R. Barker, right? Oh, Muhammad. Arneson is describing a fateful night, with Barker having gotten tired of being the game master. Arneson's character activates a magical device, really a futuristic mechanism called an eye, and transports everyone in the party from Tecumseh to Blackmoor. Then Barker and Arneson trade chairs at the table, and Barker becomes a player in Arneson's Blackmoor, while Arneson takes over running the game session. Now, Griffith says, imagine being in the presence of two significant game designers and having the pleasure of playing in both of their campaigns in one game session. That's fine. That's great. Like, I get a big part of this book is trying to amp up and pump up the early guys. And I'm not against that. Like, these guys, these are the grand masters of the game. But when I read something like this, my first response is, wow, I wish I could have been there. My response is, wow, how do I do that at my table? Wouldn't it be great if I could do that right now? And the answer is, yeah, of course you can. If you've got a campaign and your friend has a campaign and you want to get your character over there, you'll find a way. It's not that big a deal. There are portals between worlds all over the place. Don't stress out about it. This is just, oh, you activated an eye, and look at that. Everybody instantly gets teleported. Now, there was a little bit of a mystery because the stars went out, and why is our boat in the middle of a cavern now? Where are we? And they climb out and go, and the players know, oh, we're in Blackmoor. But PCs, jumping from campaign to campaign, is one of those things that fell out of fashion in the 1980s because people abused it. Hey, my character is literally Conan with an AC of -10 and a bajillion hit points. And oh, he's got the hand and eye of Vecna that he's stuck in a goblin and he beats up the goblin to make him be... Like, I get it. There are reasons why you need to put your foot down and go, no, that's dumb, that's not happening. But I think it's really hurt the hobby. I think it's done it a disservice that all of these campaigns are considered like isolated islands in the stream and ne'er the twain shall meet. Now, we did bridge that gap a little bit with things like the late 90s, early 2000s Planescape campaign. They tried to do it with Spelljammer a little bit, but people really are hesitant to do this, and you shouldn't be. You should, I'll mention again, one of my friends has red curtained rooms. He's a big fan of Twin Peaks, and apparently the red curtains, you go into them, and then you go down a little red curtained hallway, and then you come out, and you're time traveling, or you're campaign hopping. You just get dropped. I guess somebody blew a wish somewhere, and something weird happened. Now I'm in a new campaign. Don't be afraid. If you have enough friends, if your friends are running a table, and you can only go to that one once a month, take your character with you. It's fine. Now, you'll need a way to judge whether or not he's, occupied in the other campaign world. So I highly recommend you implement one-to-one time. It makes it a lot easier to do that campaign hopping. But I just wanted to point out, that's a thing that they were doing back in the night. Like, there were only 2 campaigns in existence, and they had no qualms about dropping the characters from one into the other. I think that's important. And here near the end of the book is, I think, one of the most important passages in this entire book. Within the Blackmoor bunch, the freedom to share and expand on each other's efforts was likely key to how effective the group was as a whole in contributing to the creation of what would become a worldwide phenomenon. Dave Arneson had the assistance of a tremendous number of solid players, creative people who could think outside the box, and he was not afraid to turn to those players and say, what do you think? What do we need to add here? What is my campaign missing? This is huge. Letting your players develop the campaign world is a way to get those players to invest a little bit of their time and effort. When you have a player who designs a dungeon and drops it into your world, he wants to know what happens to his dungeon. When you have a player who starts a freehold, like old Svenny did over here, he's not going to skip sessions unless he absolutely has to, like old Svenny here. There he is, the freehold. When he's got a full-blown church, he's invested. When he creates and adds to this, when it becomes a shared experience, you're going to have far more dedicated players. And I think that's one of the keys to the success. Ironically enough, it's the generosity of spirit, and it's the willingness to let go of the reins. Far too much of our modern discussion of dungeon mastering is, how do I trick my players into thinking that they have more agency than they really do? How do I get them to stay on plot? How do I get them to respect my setting? I have a tone that I'm setting. This is my campaign. Blackmoor was not Arneson's campaign. Ultimately, it was his campaign. But he had the foresight to open the doors and welcome players in and to welcome their contributions. And I think without that generous spirit, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so the lesson is, if you can adopt Blackmoor's generous spirit, what will it do to your campaign? Think about it. Until next time, I'm praying for you.